It's late. Not dramatically late, just that hour where the day is technically over, but you haven't moved yet. You're on your phone. You've been on your phone for a while. Opened one app, closed it, opened another, circled back. You're not looking for anything specific. You're just not ready to be alone with your thoughts. And somewhere underneath the scrolling, a thought surfaces. I should probably be doing something. You push it down. Keep going. That thought isn't anxiety. It isn't overthinking. That's the part of you that already knows. The part that understands, without needing to be told, that time is moving and you are not. Here is what nobody tells you clearly enough, early enough, when it would actually change something. This decade is not a rehearsal, not a warm-up, not a grace period, not the part of the story before your real life begins. The choices you make between 20 and 30 will shape the next 50 years of your existence, not metaphorically, structurally. The way a foundation determines what can stand on top of it and what eventually collapses. But nothing around you communicates that. Your phone communicates the opposite. Your feed is engineered to make time feel infinite, every moment feel low stakes. The gap between where you are and where you could be feel like something you can close later. The whole system profits from your delay. And so, you delay. Picture two people, same age, same city, same unremarkable Tuesday. The first one gets home, opens the fridge, stares into it, closes it, orders food, sits on the couch, spends 4 hours in a kind of half-rest that doesn't restore anything. Not quite sleeping, not quite living, just buffering. Goes to bed with that familiar, formless guilt they can't name and won't examine. The second one gets home from the same kind of day, makes something simple, opens a book, a course, a spreadsheet they've been quietly building. Not for 4 hours, 40 minutes. Then they rest, actually rest, without the weight. At 23, the difference between those two people is almost invisible. By 35, it's an entirely different life. And the terrifying part, the first person never felt like they were falling behind. They just felt comfortable. Until one day the comfort ran out, and what was underneath it had nothing built on it at all. You're not behind because you're lazy. You were handed a phone at 13 and an algorithm that learned faster than any teacher ever could exactly what keeps you watching. You were taught history, grammar, the periodic table. Nobody sat you down and said, the most important skill you will ever develop is the ability to act on behalf of a version of yourself you haven't met yet. And so you learn the opposite, quietly, without realizing it was a lesson. And now, here you are, smart, capable, caught somewhere between who you are and who you sense you could be, waiting for a clarity that was never going to arrive on its own. Let's be honest with each other for a moment. You know what you should be doing. You've known for a while. It's not a mystery. The investing, the skill building, the mornings you keep meaning to protect, the bank account you open and close without really looking. You know, and you keep not doing it. So this isn't a knowledge problem. It never was. This is an avoidance problem wearing the costume of confusion. You tell yourself you're still figuring it out, but figuring it out has no deadline and no moment where it ends. It's a story that keeps you standing still while feeling like you're in motion. And every month that story continues, the life you are capable of living gets slightly further away. Not dramatically, not visibly, just incrementally, like a ship drifting 1 degree off course. You don't notice it for years, and then you look up and you're nowhere near where you meant to be. You already know what needs to change. The question is whether you're going to keep pretending you don't. Let's talk about money. Not to make you feel guilty, to make it real. Every dollar you don't invest in your 20s costs you roughly $5 to $10 by your 40s. That's not a motivational statistic. That's compound interest running against you instead of for you. When you spend $100 on something you won't remember in 2 weeks, you're not spending $100. You're spending the $500 it could have become. You're trading future time for present convenience, and you're doing it so automatically you don't even feel the transaction. $100 a month invested consistently from 22. By 55, that single quiet decision, automated, invisible, unremarkable, could be worth more than most people accumulate across an entire working life. Not because of brilliance, because of earliness, because of not stopping. Most people who hear that will feel it briefly, and then nothing changes. Here's the part that should make you pause. The version of you that keeps waiting isn't cautious, isn't realistic. It's just the version that chose comfort so many times that comfort became the only thing that felt safe. And now every morning that starts with the phone instead of the intention, every evening that dissolves into content instead of construction, every month the savings account stays exactly where it was. Those aren't neutral events. They're decisions. You're just making them passively, which makes them easier to live with, but doesn't make them less permanent. You're not tired, you're avoiding. There's a difference, and somewhere in you, you already know which one it is. The resistance you feel before starting something, the sideways pull, the sudden exhaustion, the sense that now isn't quite the right moment, that's not a signal to wait. That's the exact feeling that separates the people who build something from the people who don't. The people who build something feel it too. They just stopped waiting for it to go away. The drifting life doesn't look broken. That's what makes it so hard to leave. You have people around you, you feel things, you laugh. Some weeks are good, and so the thought that something might be fundamentally wrong with the direction you're moving doesn't arrive as a crisis. It arrives as a low-grade unease you've learned to manage with distraction, a restlessness at 1 a.m. that the phone temporarily quiets, a vague guilt after a weekend that passed without anything to show for it. You're not suffering, you're drifting. And drifting is the most dangerous condition because it feels survivable indefinitely, right up until it isn't. Now I want you to picture something specific. You're 43 years old. You're sitting in a kitchen, or a car, or a quiet room in a life that is functional, not destroyed, just not what you meant. You're paying bills that are manageable. You have a job that's tolerable. Everything is fine in the way that makes it impossible to justify being unhappy about. And you remember being 24. You remember how open it felt, how much time seemed to be ahead of you. You remember the specific, ordinary evening when someone tried to tell you something, and you felt it, really felt it for about an hour, and then you went back to your phone. And you think, what if I had just started? Not with everything, with one thing, one habit, one investment, one morning protected from the noise.
What would be different right now if you had just started then and not stopped? That version of you doesn't live in catastrophe. They live in the quiet, private grief of someone who can see exactly what was possible and understands, finally and completely, that they had everything they needed to build it. The time, the youth, the options, all of it spent on being comfortable. This is about more than habits. Habits are just the surface. This is about what type of person you decide to be, and that decision, consciously or made by default, is what everything else flows from. There are people who drift through life reactively, not bad people, not stupid people, people who never made the decision clearly and deliberately that their future self was worth protecting right now. They keep waiting for motivation, for the right moment, for conditions that never quite arrive. And then there are people who decided, quietly, without ceremony, without anyone watching. They looked at the direction they were heading and said, "Not this." And they began, small, unsexy, consistent. The difference between those two lives isn't talent, it isn't luck. It's that one person made a decision and the other kept postponing the moment they'd have to. If you keep waiting for the right moment is not coming. This is it. This ordinary evening, this unremarkable week, this chapter of your life that feels like a preamble. This is not before the story. This is the story. So here is what changes everything. Not a system, not a plan, a decision. You check your accounts tonight, and you actually look, not to feel bad, just to see clearly. You automate one investment, small enough to survive, large enough to matter over time. You build one skill, not because you're passionate about it, but because competence compounds the same way money does. You protect 1 hour of your morning before the world fills it with its demands. You go to sleep having done one thing your future self would recognize as the beginning. The graph doesn't move, nobody notices, nothing feels different in the morning, but you'll know. And that knowing, that quiet, private, unsexy sense that you are finally the person making decisions about your life, rather than the person things are happening to, that's the foundation. That's what everything is built on. Most people watching this will feel something real right now, and then they'll open another video. The feeling will pass by morning. The month will go the same way the last one did, and they'll keep telling themselves there's still time, not understanding that time was never the thing they were waiting for. Here's the truth that this entire script has been building toward. You're still in the window. Right now, tonight, in this decade, the window is open. The compounding can still work for you. The foundation can still be laid. The person you're capable of becoming is still reachable from here. But the window is not permanent, and it does not announce when it's closing. One day you'll be older and you'll look back at your 20s the way you now look back at childhood, with the strange, aching recognition that you didn't know what you had while you had it, that the freedom felt ordinary because you'd never lost it yet. And you'll either feel the deep, solid gratitude of someone who understood what they were holding in time, or you'll be back in that kitchen, that quiet room, that functional, tolerable life, remembering this moment, wondering why you didn't move.